I'm going to see the little please. Okay.
Well, good. Okay, it is 7 o'clock, Tuesday, November 10. This is a Finance Committee meeting for the Board of Education at Mahomet Seymour. We have a pretty standard agenda tonight with just a few things to do. So we will call the meeting to order. And Dawn, do you have a long roll call for us?
Giles.
I am here.
Keith.
Here.
Ken is also here. We only have 2 of us on the committee, so we are complete, some would say. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Come on, Ken, make sure you join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Ken, you good with what we see here?
I am. Thank you.
All right, I'll second the motion. So we're good with. We do a voice vote? We do a roll call? Does it matter in a committee? We'll be both approved.
No, you need to do roll call.
Roll call?
On everything.
Okay.
I'll do it. Giles.
Okay, I will say yes again.
Keith.
Yes.
We're good there. So that's the agenda. Also then the approval of the minutes from July 29. Those minutes were fairly straightforward as well. We had the same 2 of us here for the committee, and we discussed the preliminary budget with then after July 29 went to full board for approval. So Don, let's call for roll call on that one. Ken, you good?
A motion.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Ken so moved and I seconded. All right, Don.
Keith.
Yes.
Giles.
Oh, yes. All right, forgot that little thing. We have no forms for public comment tonight. How about that? So the agenda item we have for tonight is the tax levy. There are some idiosyncrasies about levies, and
Yes.
Heather's here to talk to us about all of those. We might be an hour in before we get done, but anyway, Heather, why don't you share with us what you have put in the board packet?
Okay, first of all, Mahomet Seymour is not a tax cap district. So right now, we are allowed to levy up to certain rates though. So we are maxed at certain rates for most of our funds except for 3. So we will only get that much of the EAV, no matter what we levy for, whatever the EAV comes out to. The tricky part is though, if we don't levy enough, because it's in a dollar amount, we don't levy enough. If we don't actually estimate the levy at a reasonable or a higher rate, then we can leave money on the table and not get as much money in the next year. So starting off, like I said, there are certain funds that have caps to them, which is education, operations and maintenance, transportation, working cash, and fire safety. So those all, the ones that we can levy as needed are IMRF, Social Security, and tort. With tort though, you do have a tort plan, so you can only levy for things that are within your tort plan. So what I've done tonight is I actually received from the county clerk's office, but I'm assuming it originated at the assessor's office. I received an estimate for this next year. And what they told me is that our EAV, our rate setting EAV is going, their estimate and is 3.79%. And the truth is we have had an average over the last like 30 years of 5.74%. What that tells me is that Mahomet is continuing to grow throughout the years and is still growing. 3.79% is really good for a year with everything that's happened, because this is for the assessed values for 2020 calendar year. So what I have done, my goal is to keep our tax rate steady. And so what I do is I put in the rates as the assessor said. So with a 3.79% increase, I look to see what it would take to have the rate stay the same. So I fill that in. As I said, the restricted amounts are just based off that percentage, but then the as needed then are filled in based off of the money after the restricted funds and the bonds to make it even amount. So this year I have an even amount, trying to keep it at 4.5979 with the EAV increasing. Now I will not levy for that amount because, again, like I said, you could leave money on the table if you don't levy enough, so you can balloon the restricted values. And the reason you do that is so that if for some reason the assessor is off, because again it's an estimate, you want to make sure you get all the money that you can based off of the future EAV. So I went to 4.5% for that, but you'll see that the Social Security, the tort, and the IMRF stayed at the same amount in the schedule that I did based off the assessor. That way the rate will not go up if we only have the 3.79. So, and I'd just like to point out some facts. Like I said, the EAVs continue to grow. And the thing is with property taxes are the largest income source for this district. And a lot of it is because we do not get a lot of state aid, we do not get a lot of grants, basically based off of our low income percentage. So we rely heavily on property taxes. The good thing is that Mahomet, Seymour, and something I have to say I haven't really seen before is that they've kept the rate to one of the lowest in Champaign County. It is the second lowest in Champaign County and under the average for the county as a whole. Not to mention the fact that over the last 22, 30 years, they have continued to be under the average. So to me, that's, not really increasing a tax rate for 22, 30 years is pretty darn good for any community. Especially with us so reliant on property taxes. Not to mention the fact that as we're growing, our EAV is always based on the year before. So as we're getting more students, that amount per pupil is decreasing, or it's going lower until we get more funds in the next year. So being able to operate the way that Mahomet Seymour has, with it growing so rapidly over this time period, to me is very, very, very good. So, so that is what I have prepared here. And one of the things is that with the 4.5% increase, we would still be under the 5% for truth and taxation hearing. So we don't necessarily have to have a hearing this year if we do not want to. If we wanted to do it just to do it, we can. But with this levy, there's no way that we would go over the 5%.
Just a couple observations here, Heather. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
To me, thinking about business and so forth over the years, to me it's very intriguing to see how our assessed value has increased, or in fact, in all cases, it has, and by categories. So our farm assessed values are a little over 40 million in 2019, which is double what they were in 1998.
Yes.
The commercial property values are less in our district, but by half. about 23 million today in assessed value, and that doubles from under 12 million in 2002. Then residential is the big one here, which is 300 million in assessed value. And to go back to when it was half, it was in 2004. So it's impressive that in 22 years with farm, which usually doesn't increase as much as the others, in 18 years with commercial values, and in 2 years less than that, 16 years in residential values, our assessed values have doubled. So pretty interesting. 2018, those assessed values went up 7.25% roughly, which is the highest we've had in the past number of years, maybe 13. Our glory years for increases were lots of building going on in the early 90s. We were going up 8 and 8 and 9 and 10. Also then in the early 2000s, went up 10 and 8 again there and 9 in 2005, 6, and 7. So just a bit of history here and how those rates have gone up. And for the record, our tax estimate here per equalized assessed value is less than it was about 12 years ago. So that's just the historical take on that. So your recommendation, Heather, as I hear it, is to
Keep it flat.
keep it flat, but to assess for enough that if the EAV went up more than the assessment, we could still capture some of that.
Yes, and it's not only just because to keep the tax rate, of course, you want to keep it flat for the residents, but also you don't want to decrease anything, especially with it, in my opinion, with this low of a tax rate. With this being our primary source of income, but also with the bills I shared with you, with the board. Basically, there have been bills on the table to make non-tax cap districts capped at some point. That is very important as we continue to grow and give increases that are needed, and it's just some of that. It'll be interesting to see how that will work, if it'll be based off of CPI or whatnot, like the capped districts. I mean, they don't have a lot of detail. I just know it's been stuck in a lot. It's been hanging on to a lot of the side of bills, like with other things contained. Not to mention the fact that our governor has made mention, and I don't know if it'll happen or not, but with the fair tax not passing, that he may be cutting some funding as well.
We sort of play hot potato on where our risk is for revenue. A few years ago, it was the state wouldn't pay 100% of what the GSA or whatever it was at the time, the general state aid, and they would just underpay at will. The risk in property taxes recently has been cash flow itself, the timing of payments, where we've been under, $3-4 million not on time.
Yes, we just received $8 million in October, and then we received another $1 million this month in November. So we still have about 400 to 500,000 to collect. So we're about 97% at our levy. So
That's good. So and now, from what I'm hearing you say, is that we could be at risk on the state aid again because of the political situation.
I am worried. The one I'll tell you I'm worried about is categoricals. I think that's the one they'll use because they've tried to say that EBF will be, evidence-based funding will be, promised. And even though they didn't give the tier funding this year, I can see them either prorating the categoricals or just not paying them on time so that they lag into the next year, would be my guess.
They could. It turns out that one of the more stable sources of revenue now has been sales tax.
Yes, we actually, this month compared to this month last year, we were down 1.9%. So that took our average for the year from like, I think 6.9 to 6.2. So we're trending in the right way, and hopefully with the holidays and the internet that Dr. Hall mentioned earlier, it will help the situation.
So in the other comparison, it is on tax rates themselves with other schools, we have been second to the bottom in a while now. So we're a bit over $4 per 100,000 of assessed value of property. The total tax rate, I think, is around 8, is it not? So we're about half of the total tax rate.
And that's normal for every community. The district is usually half.
Yes. And a lot of folks think that we've got the high tax rates, but halfway up the list, actually Champaign is $1 more per 100,000 than we are. We think of what we just asked for in the Champaign Forest Preserve, for instance, and so forth. So Champaign's a full $1 above us, and there are other schools then that are $1.50 higher than that. They're at $6.65. Small districts are in the high 5s, and for us to be at $4.50 is pretty special.
And
so,
one thing else I'd like to point out is, there's 2 parts to your tax bill that can make it go up or down. It's the rates from the taxing bodies, but then it's also your assessed value that is on your tax bill. So if that assessed value goes up, which is a good thing for you, because that means your house is worth more, even if the rate doesn't increase, your actual tax bill can increase. Because I always had a hard time explaining this before when I had multiple townships, because I would say, okay, the rate is flat. Well, maybe one township went up a lot, because they had different assessors. Another township went down a lot, but the average overall stayed the same, but it had to do with their assessed value. So, just trying to explain that it's basically, the difference in what the assessor felt that the value of their house was before and now.
well, to make a simple comparison for all the junior high and high school kids out there watching us tonight, this is no different than the monopoly board. You get a house or a hotel on that space on the monopoly board, and you've got to pay more tax when the tax man comes around, and yes, it's very, very similar. Ken, thoughts, education, other ideas you'd like to share tonight?
So I just had a few questions. Heather, the estimated EAV, is that countywide or is that only our district?
That is only our district.
Okay, and that's the county assessor that makes that estimate, is that right?
Yes, and I can send you a copy of that as well if you'd like.
Sure, I'd be interested just to learn from it.
Yes, yeah, no, it has the value. You can see the different values, by the industrial, the local, and everything like that they've counted in there. And you'll notice it, and when I send it, it's the rate setting EAV and taxable value. So you'll be able to see that. I have little red marks by it, but I will send that to the board.
And is there some reason why so you're suggesting the tort go up to $1,036,000? Is there some reason there's that specific dollar amount, or is it you're just trying to hit the aggregate rate target?
I'm trying to hit the aggregate rate. I did, though, if you see the IMRF and Social Security, that's about a 4.4% increase. That is to account for the increase in the rate at IMRF and the increase in raises throughout the district for IMRF employees. So the difference, and this is a totally different thing, but there are some other costs that we could possibly, if we can, once we meet to go over our tort plan this year, that we could actually divert to tort if we can, if we look at our other expenses and see where we're at. So right now, there are some administration there. The one thing I see some possibilities for is some of the custodial staff could also be moved to there as well because of safety. And that I had that in a previous tort plan as well. And it would only be a portion of their salary, it would not be all, but a portion. What we do is do a time study and see how much of their work is basically done, for safety reasons, and then allot that percentage. And it doesn't mean we have to, it's something to put in the plan. Like if for example, if we had extra money at the end of the year in tort, I could actually divert that, and that would take that out of the operations funds and increase our cash on hand.
Well, I just want to say I'm really grateful that you really prioritize keeping it level. I mean, you've got it. If this estimated assessed value hits the target, we're going to be exactly level on our tax rate. And I'm, given how things are in the world right now, and everyone who's losing jobs or small businesses that are suffering, I'm really grateful that you focused on hitting that target and kept our rate right level. That's really great.
Well, thank you.
Ken, any other thoughts?
I don't have any other questions, no.
I don't think I do either. Heather, this is pretty straightforward. We take no action tonight. This is just the discussion. This is the hearing to put forth and share with the public what is to come. So this will then come as an agenda item for the next board meeting.
Mm-hmm. You're just approving preliminary approval of the levy, and then the final approval will be in December. And so one thing that we did want to discuss was whether or not, as the Finance Committee, do you want to have the Truth in Taxation hearing in December? It's not required because we're below the 5%, but just wanted to put that out there. We did have it last year because of that increase was larger. But so that's just open for discussion. If you want the whole board to discuss it, we can do that too, but you might take a recommendation to the board for Monday night.
So at that hearing, I can imagine we wouldn't cover anything necessarily more than what we covered tonight.
No.
Ken, my thought is, my goodness, we could point people to what we did here tonight, and even make a reminder of that when the December date comes around, and say, hey, no need for a special hearing, but all that information was discussed on whatever day this is, November 10.
Well, similar to the budget, I'll put the levy on the website after the November meeting, if it, is approved, and then that way anybody can ask questions or anything in between that November and December board meeting.
Ken, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's fine, especially with the 3.79 estimate. We're pretty well below that 5%. Dr. Hall, you probably were planning to do this, but I would appreciate if we just send it out to parents.
Sure.
But otherwise, I think that's a good plan. Put it on the website, and I think we can skip the truth and taxation hearing.
Good suggestion on getting that to the parents. It's actually pretty consistently good news to be able to say that, hey, the tax rate's going to stay the same, and here we are compared to the rest of the county.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Merle.
Yep, it's always good to share the good news.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else to come before this committee tonight? Hearing none, seeing none, we will declare ourselves adjourned as long as Ken has no objection.
I think that's a fine idea.
All right, good. We stand adjourned at 7:23.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate all your work on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Dr. Hall.
I actually enjoyed the last time. That's weird.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you, Ken.
Yep, thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Margaret.
That's fine. No, that's not. No.